Max Bredeson returning for his 5th year in 2025, set to pretty much be a lock to be a 2-time captain on this Michigan team. He would join his brother, former Michigan offensive lineman Ben Bredeson, as a 2-time captain. I was looking at this too, Anthony. There were 7 2-time captains under Jim Harbaugh. Max would become the first under Sherrone Moore. So a big-time feat there, but, I mean, his impact on the field, run blocking, pass blocking, has caught 10 passes in his career, has been in on and had key blocks for pretty much every big run over the last couple of years. This is a huge, huge addition. Probably as big as it can get for a guy that only has 10 career catches, because his impact is in so many different ways.
Well, and he sets the tone from a physicality standpoint on offense. He sets the tone in the run game from that standpoint. And this is, I know they brought in Chip Lindsey, and you understand that with Mikey Keene and Bryce Underwood at quarterback, like, the passing game is going to get a little more run next year. But when you can control the line of scrimmage and you can set a tone physically, set the terms of a game, which I think, if you kind of distill these last 4 wins against Ohio State, and I have to check, I don't think there's anyone in Michigan history that's ever won 5 straight against Ohio State as a player. That would certainly be something to look into. So when they've won those games, it's because they dictate the terms. And Bredeson is the type of player that helps dictate the terms of a game. And, again, we'll forget about this particular season if they go on to bigger and better things starting next year and in the years to come. But he has a special role right now to play in Michigan history, not only because of the impact he had on those teams that competed for and won Big Ten titles and won a national title, but he was kind of the guy that coined the term bye-in week, which was that second bye week that Michigan had, where a bolt of lightning, as I keep saying, struck the program, and all these good things were happening behind the scenes. All these things were, good things started happening in the weight room, on the practice field, and you drop a 50 burger on Northwestern out of the clouds. You beat Ohio State in one of the biggest upsets in that rivalry's history, and you go on and you keep everyone together, and kind of all hands on deck, find a way to win your bowl game too, as another big underdog. So for me, he's the type of guy where, we talk about those lunch pail guys. We talk about, he's the first guy in, last to leave. Max Bredeson is that personified, and someone who, as we kind of bridge into this new era, and I do think that this year was the bridge year, and now next year really, to me, feels like the first full true year of this new regime. To have a guy as a bridge leader that's experienced that and that can kind of pass the baton to other players in terms of setting that standard, setting what it's supposed to look like at Michigan, it's a massive, massive re-addition.
And when you talk about leadership, a lot of it we can't see. A lot of it's in the locker room. It's in practice. It's just setting the tone for those daily habits that, all the different players have, and leading by example, pulling guys along when they need it. But you do see it with Max Bredeson too, forward facing when it comes to speaking with the media. Like I call it speaking Michigan football. He's fluent in Michigan football. Like it's team talk that he has. He's a great representative in that way, along with several other guys as well that help keep this team together this season when there were some pretty low points and you were 5-5 and then you win your last 3. You also see it when they run out of the tunnel, hit the banner, and they all come together. He's got his helmet off, screaming at everybody. You see some, or you get to hear some of that in those mini movies that they post after the wins. But, I would love to hear a full one, because he's just going crazy down there, and he fires those guys up. And then the other thing is, too, I was thinking about this, because when you think about the possibility of him not coming back, which was, there was a chance that was going to happen, and he could have gone to the NFL, probably get picked up by a Harbaugh or somebody else that uses a fullback. Okay, who's next in line? Jalen Hoffman has gotten some snaps there. He's a walk-on. But Eli Owens comes in this year as kind of, a guy who not only wore number 44 in high school, but has a lot of the same traits as Max Bredeson on the football field. And Now Eli Owens is going to have a year with Max Bredeson to kind of learn under him, to learn what he's all about. It seems like they have a similar mentality. And I think that could go a long way and help passing the culture along to who could be a next leader on this Michigan team. But I mean, yeah, just every big play over the last few years, last two specifically, he was pretty much in on paving the way for some of those big runs. I mean, the run, Blake Corum's run in overtime in the Rose Bowl for a touchdown, the USC fourth down this year. I mean, they kept going to him at the goal line this year pretty much every single time, and eventually they would get it in the end zone. He had 356 offensive snaps this year. 270 of them were run blocking snaps. He pass blocked on 36 plays. Those are probably underrated. It comes in motion, play action a lot of the time, and then he ran routes on 50. Got himself 3 grabs, which was nice. Break a little tendency there, but I just think of a big addition overall. Anything else on Bredy, as they call him?
No, nothing on Bredy. I'm sure the conversation turns now to who's next in terms of who needs to be retained.
Right.
You could get another potential 2-time captain back if Rod Moore, when he decides to make his decision. A couple other guys out there, Rayshon Benny would be probably outside of Rod Moore, maybe the biggest impact guy, especially on the defensive side of the ball, in terms of those counting numbers and snap counts and all those types of things. I certainly think he'd be one of your starting defensive tackles. I mean, he'd be a lock for that. So those are the 2 big ones. There are graduate guys that I assume, since we haven't heard anything, that they will be back. Your Giovanni El Hadis of the world. There's a lot of depth guys too. Keyshawn Bennett, your Jaden Hood. So, those kind of pale in comparison to some of the guys that are still left to make their decisions. But you'd have to think a guy like Bredeson comes back. Kind of, I would think that everyone who's still left has a pretty darn good chance of returning. I think that deadline for the NFL draft, I think the soft deadline is passed already, but the hard deadline in order to officially declare is, I want to say, the 21st or the 23rd, whatever it is, sometime after the national title game. So the fact that there's no news one way or another, dotting some I's, crossing some T's, maybe with our friends over at Champion Circle, I think that there's we should get more good news and more momentum here in the next few weeks.
I actually think the deadline for the Michigan guys is the 15th, and then if you're in the championship game, you get to the 24th, based on what I've read. So we should get clarity.
There was some kind of deadline for, like, if you wanted to be in the All-Star games and things like Senior Bowl, East-West game, and I think that's passed, but I'm not 100% sure on that.
Yeah. So yeah, those are going to be the big ones. Probably on at least one of our shows next week, we'll be talking about, what Rod Moore decided to do, what Rayshon Benny decided to do. It is kind of interesting. You get this, Davis Warren, Peyton O'Leary, Max Bredeson, and Joe Taylor all lived together this year, all made, pretty decent impact. I mean, Bredeson, obviously we talked about his, and then Davis Warren is the starting quarterback for 9 games. Peyton O'Leary was, one of his favorite targets. I mean, it wasn't many receptions. I think it was 10, but, at the same time, there weren't that many from a lot of wide receivers. And Joe Taylor was one of their weapons on special teams. So don't know, as a walk-on, what he's going to, what, if there's room for guys like that or not. I would imagine there will be, but they just got to get at 105 by the time the season comes along. So we'll see. Obviously, roster is huge right now in college football because everyone's trimming, trying to get down to that 105.